right, Chris. Good evening and welcome to another Alberta Landlord Shoptalk. How are you doing this fine? Is it snowing up where you are?
Oh, hardly any snow, but we got lots of rain up here. Did you guys get that?
We just got a good skiff of snow, a good couple inch. Actually, yeah, it's probably over an inch, maybe 2 inches. So a little slick in Calgary right now.
Well, I'd rather had your snow versus the rain. I would say I was up in Edmonton today. I overnighted it last night, and I would say there was probably a quarter inch of ice on the sidewalks this morning. So
Ooh, ooh. Well,
ugly.
let's
Anyway, what do we
segue.
got going on? What do we got going on?
This is your neck of the woods. I'm gonna probably more so be a fly in the wall and ask questions to learn a little bit more. But one of the most awkward and uncomfortable subjects for myself, a person who's never been in a fight in his entire life. I usually talk myself out of situations, which I don't think you're surprised, Chris. But conflict resolution. So I'm hoping we can leverage the fine career that you gave us in law enforcement as a first responder, as an RCMP officer. Uh, Real Canadian RCMP officer, and talk about dealing with this because we did that show 2 weeks ago, 2 shows ago I think it was, and impromptu you threw me in the spot, and we did one too, and it was a role play and it was safe. It was over a live stream like this, and I was uncomfortable, Chris. You had the fur on my neck up. And I was sweating the palms, and I don't know if you noticed, I had a bit of a quiver of the voice. I tried to hide it, and I thought, you know what? This is a good conversation to get into a little bit more of just to manage the emotions when you've got a difficult, challenging situation. Or even, I've known in the past, I've had to call tenants about a high utility bill, and I didn't like it. It made me really uncomfortable, and I put it off for some time because it was uncomfortable. And I think it'd be a really valuable skill if we can kind of get some pointers on it, which I think is in your toolbox, Chris.
Well, thanks, Max, for that. I would say sometimes I'm a little too black and white on the page, but let's segue into conflict resolutions. We are bringing Robert Bonin onto the page tonight. Can you
What were we
imagine? Rob
thinking?
Bowe, you all know him as Ron Bowe. What are we thinking bringing Rob in here during conflict resolution situations? I don't know. I think he's going to have some fun. That he probably can hear us talking backstage. And we also have Bill Biko, Uncle Bill from the Educated Landlords. Love having this guy on the page.
Yeah.
He's such a, you know what? I think you should do the conflict resolution with him because he's just level.
We
He's
should.
just,
We could
he,
even throw an impromptu role playing tonight if you guys want to do it again. Um, Bill's gonna be great. He's had over 1,000 tenants that he's placed, let alone the ones he's interviewed. So lots of experience. Rob Bond's gonna give us an update at RT. Man, I'm horrible with the acronyms.
RTDRS.
RTDRS tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna update. I'm gonna ask him what the weight is right now. Typically, I know when Don updated us last time, it was, what were we? 21 days, 3 weeks out. Plus, we're coming to Christmas break, so you gotta keep that in mind. Holidays too will add to that
Mm-hmm.
eviction. So if you're on that line right now, you're dealing with an eviction or a possibility, don't wait on the paperwork. Get it going.
Yeah. And that's, thankfully get Rob on again. Rob is a page approved or a page sponsor as well as a trusted member of the page. So look forward to all these guys joining us. Let's hit the big intro here. Go grab yourself a drink, whether it's a tea, coffee, beer, or other. Sit down, relax, and see you back here in about 45 seconds. Hi,
Perfect.
everybody.
Here we are,
What are you eating, Rob?
gentlemen.
Bacon.
One guy's having a slice of bacon, the other's on something on the rocks. Yeah, I know you got a cold beer and a 2 liter Coke bottle. All right,
Yeah,
let's get the.
that's why he's so wired all the time. He's got so much sugar in him. So little sidebar here. Guess what I'm going to try? Well, I did it once already this summer, but I'm going all out at Christmas time. You ready for this? Smoked on the Traeger, bacon wrapped carrots.
That sounds pretty freaking tasty.
It actually is amazing. You just al dente the carrots, and then you wrap them in bacon and smoke them up on the Traeger, and then cut them into nice little bite-sized chunk with a little chipotle sauce. Oh my God! It's like I came out to have one, and they were gone. It's like amazing.
I'll make you some. I get the moose meat and I marinate it for about 3 to 4 weeks. I've got some marinating right now. Just for Christmas, I wrap them in bacon, jalapenos, and a little bit of cream cheese, and cook them at about 300 for about 20 minutes. They are like floats in your mouth. They're amazing.
Wow. Looking forward to
There
that.
you go.
All right, Matt, let's get this kicked off. What do you got?
So we're kind of going back and forth, and by that I mean I told Chris what we're doing for a show tonight, and I said we're doing conflict resolution. So it's in this business, if you're in it any length of time, almost really, you're going to come across an awkward conversation, whether you're evicting a tenant, addressing damages, perhaps a high utility bill. There are so many different situations why you're going to come into conflict resolution. So why not have a more nuanced discussion around how to manage the emotions and address those conversations in a tactful manner to allow you to manage them. So that's basically what it came down. So I mean, Chris, you came at me a couple of weeks ago. You were my aggressive tenant for damages in the property. Was the situation that we role played, and we just kicked Rob out apparently. And it was awkward. It was truly uncomfortable. So I've just for the record, I've never been in a fight. The closest thing I've been to a fight is 5 minutes in hockey, which I don't know if it really counts because at the end of the game we still shake hands anyways. But never been in a bar fight. Any of those situations, I've been very. I don't like conflict. I don't like conflict. It's not in my core values. It bugs me. So it's difficult to address that head on. So when we had that conversation and the role playing, even though it was all virtual over this shop talk, I was uncomfortable, Chris. You had my heart
Mac,
raised.
I don't really agree with
tense.
you here, Mac. I'm disagreeing with you.
But yeah, like it was just, I don't know. And then I got thinking after, I'm like, I knew how I felt, and it was as in a role playing situation, and I've been in some awkward tense situations. Like, you know what? Let's get into some nitty gritty, because we talked about this after, how you said in the show, well, you did a good job of holding your position, and I didn't realize I did that. My intention when I go into conflict resolution is I always intend to get not compliance. What's the word? Agreement on what the solution is. I always expect that we always be on the same side, but there's going to be situations where the tenant is so aggressive, you may never get to that step, and you have to involve a third party where RTDRS comes into play. You bring in an eviction expert like Rob Bonin and go from there. So I didn't understand that mindset until we started talking about it. So I thought maybe let's walk through conflict in general, and let's get into the nitty gritty and the tactics to deal with it. And we've got two experienced gentlemen with us to share some tips and comment on the situation.
Well, just before we kick that off, let's just do, we know we did the pre-intro of everybody, but let's quickly roundtable here. Just below you on the screen, we have Robert Bonin with Red Deer Recovery Services. And Rob, very short 30-second intro, what you got going on with your services.
Well, I represent both tenants and landlords with conflict resolution, whether it be in the provincial court or the RTDRS. About 85% of my clientele is landlords, but I do take on some tenant ones when I see landlords are acting shady and inappropriate. That puts a bad representation on us all. So I'll hold them to task. And it gives a nice balance to the judges and the RTDR hearing officers, not showing that we're just always attacking one side. We'll take the just side every time.
Yeah, I'd like to actually give you a little feather in your cap on that, Rob. When you go into a situation where court and you're seeing the same judges and same things, whether it's RTDRS or the provincial judges, you actually, when you start representing both sides of the story, you actually gain credibility in the court because they see you time and time again, and you're not asking for the stars. You're only asking for the top of, maybe halfway up the hill is a better way.
Well, yeah, I start off with, on paper, my application looks like I'm aiming for the stars, but by the time we get to the hearing, we've already partially resolved the issue. And the big keyword I use with my clients is be reasonable. Don't look for revenge, just be reasonable. If you're looking for revenge, you're not going to find it. It'll hurt you in the long run as far as your decision goes. It'll hurt you in the long run as far as getting any money back or any costs. Just be reasonable.
Yeah.
And that'll gain you so much credibility across the board.
Absolutely. Sometimes looking for that final nail in the coffin isn't the right thing and isn't a great way to resolve a conflict. Over to you, Bill Biko. Let's know a little bit about you. So some of our new people that have been part of our page that have come along, because we've jumped up to about 3,500 almost members of the page.
Yeah,
Bill, tell us about
this
you.
week.
I got nothing. Okay, kidding.
You got nothing.
So,
to the point.
Been a landlord for almost 20 years. Had a little over 1,500 tenants since I started. A lot of my properties were rooming houses, so I dealt with a lot of unique, rougher individuals. So learned a lot of the rules about evicting and removing tenants. And now I help landlords here in Alberta, and then through the Educated Landlord, I help landlords all over the planet, actually, with basic stuff.
When you say rooming houses, is it like a chicken ranch thing, or is this, you want to explain that?
Rented rooms, furnished rooms by the week. So.
Oh, I got you there. Okay, well, just thanks for clearing that up, Bill.
Perfect.
I wonder if some of the younger viewers even know what we're talking about when I say that. So anyway, Bill, you got a website or a page or something where people can go to you for a little bit of education, right?
Yeah, theeducatedlandlord.com is one of them. There's others, but that's a great place to start. So.
Perfect.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, Mac, I'll let you lead in there, whether we're going to grab questions on page. Oh, and by the way, folks, if you are listening, put your questions up. We get about, I don't know, we're sitting around 20 or 15 or 18 viewers right now. So if you have some questions, put it up. We'll address them. And if not, as we go, put your questions up. So Mac, go ahead with where you want to go with the show.
Well, yeah, it's just it got me thinking, because we had that conversation, we did that role play, and it was awkward. And I, even knowing it was role play, I still was on edge. I felt my heart elevate. I was clenching. I was a bit sweaty, and I was like, "Oh man, like this is intense." Like you did a really good job of being a dick, Chris. Like you nailed it. So
good job, skills.
Yeah,
I was
so
listening
like,
to
okay.
I went to the Rob Bonning 101 on that one.
Oh, were you trying to make him cry, Chris?
So,
yeah,
man, I'm pretty sure I was flush after too. Like I had all the emotions. I'm like, yeah,
I could tell.
So,
You've talked about it 6 times since we started. I could tell you're still holding the grudge.
So let's dig into it. There's like we're all going to be in this position. So Chris, I mean, from your former career as a RCMP police officer, like, tell me, like, this must be your 101. So paint us a background. Is there certain categories? Is there type of temperaments that we need to look for? Like, can you give us a construct or a way to understand conflict?
Well, you know what? It's a great question, because we see it on the page lots where people go, well, I think I'm going to have this problem with a tenant. In this case, I think this, that, or I think that. And I think, Rob, you rubber stamp it or straighten me out here where I go next is when you go in to do your final walkthrough with a tenant, all that is about is what you don't have to agree. There's nothing to resolve at that time if it becomes conflictual. If they say, yeah, I did punch the wall here because I was upset because I got fired at work. Okay, so you put the hole in the wall. Yeah, so that has to be fixed. Yeah, okay. No, I don't know why there's a footprint in the fridge. I have no idea. Must have been somebody else that did that. Okay, but that footprint in the fridge and that big dent wasn't on your check-in. Well, I don't know how it got there. Okay, fine. End of story. And when I say footprint in the fridge, those of you who watch the show and those that know that's what Mac and I, that was a subject that became a conflict. But so what? So what if they don't agree to it? It doesn't matter. It's the aftermath that you're going to deal with. Don't get yourself say, okay, no, okay, well, I'm going to note on here there's a foot in the fridge. Yeah, well, whatever, it's bullshit. I don't know. I didn't have anything to do with that. Okay, well, footprint in the fridge. Next thing is maybe, I don't know, paint missing scratches down the wall because they moved a couch out and it put a gouge in the wall. That gouge clearly would have been documented on the check-in. That was there when we moved in. No, there were nothing, because you remember. Here's some play I use is I say, here's the check-in sheet. I want you to walk through the place. I am not going to hover and make you feel uncomfortable. I'm going to go for a few minutes, or I'm going to hang out upstairs because I have some things I need to do. I want you and your spouse or your partner here to walk through and take your time. I am not going to look over your shoulder. If there's something you see, document it. I want you to write down every pinhole, everything you see that's bugging you, write it down. Oh, okay, they say. And I said, when you're done, show me what you found so I can acknowledge it. I would say probably 9 times out of 10 they come back, yeah, there's just a couple of these little scrapes or bumps here, and I noted them here, and I look at it and I go, pretty clear. Left wall or south wall paint chip. And that's it. When you're not hovering, they don't feel the stress of it. And then when I go to court afterwards, that's my practice. That's what I say. I go, my practice is this. I will stay in the kitchen and I tell them to take their time. I don't hover. I don't want them to feel stress or pressure from me looking over their shoulder that they have to accept what they do. And I specifically tell them, look at every single wall in the unit, look at every single door, front and back, and walk through. So when I go to court, I can say, that's my practice. That's what I do every single time because I don't want them to be stressed. And when they come up, I encourage them to write down every single thing they see, whether it's a hole for a picture or a nick from whatever something I missed. And there's no conflict going in. So then afterwards, I'll say, do you remember when we did this? Do you remember what I said? Because I do the same thing every time. Now you're saying, what's that got to do with my history as a police officer? What it is when you go to give evidence in court is I will say to the judge, this is my practice. I do A, B, C, D, and E every time, and I can testify that whether it's civil court or criminal court, that I did the same thing every time. It's my practice. And they can't dispute that because it's what I do every single time. And quite often you'll get the tenants, well, yeah, I know you didn't follow us around, and yeah, you let us do that. Well, boom, you just got validated, even though they didn't give everything and give you every single word. Yeah, well, you told us to go around and do that. Boom, you're validated right there. So your story, even though it was at length, just got validated by, yeah, you told us to do that.
And you're bang on, Chris. I take it a little, I'll give you some tips. I take it a little further. Everything you did in the middle was fantastic. But one of the things I do at the start is I reestablish the contacts because it's right at the top of it. I say, here's my number. Can I just double check what your number is and what your email address is? What's the easiest way to get a hold of you? I haven't even started the move-in. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then I walk them through on the backside. What, if you don't agree with this, here it is. We showed up on the second time. This is why we do it this way. So what I'm doing is I'm really imprinting on them. We haven't even got into the meat and potatoes. What I do is I get them to look around and I write down what I feel is pertinent in a one color of pen. So it's usually black, and I had a red pen to the tenants. I want it completely different. And I say to the tenants, is there anything that you're noticing? And they point out, like, great, write that down. And I hand them the clipboard and I get them to write it down in a different color pen in their writing. So not only am I getting what I see, I'm getting what they see. So there's no bad perceptions. I'm getting both perceptions. So it really holds up in court because the judge goes, why do you use two color pens? Because I wrote down what I saw and they agreed with it. And then they wrote down what they saw. And you could see in our signatures how we're both using different pens. And the judge is like, boom. But the move-ins, if you get somebody on the defensive pointing out anything, the first thing I do is I walk in, even when it's god awful. I mean, they've showed up, great. Even when it showed up, I look impressed. Like, oh, this isn't so bad. Even there could be a yellow chalkboard on the floor. This isn't so bad. I try and make it sound like it's not that big of a deal. So right away, they're not defensive. They're like, oh, okay, maybe there's a chance. And I say, well, before we get started, where is it? Where can I send this to? Your address. Oh, we don't have a place. Well, can I send it to your mom's place? Great. You want to write down that address? My fingers are killing me. They write down mom and dad's address in their own handwriting. And then I get them, I got you. In case it doesn't arrive, can I send you a copy in the email? And I've got a little spot on the bottom that says, consenting to send documentation to this address. That's what I've got written on the bottom. It doesn't say a forwarding address. It says consenting to accept written documents. So in case I do have to serve them, they've given me consent to email it. And I haven't even got into doing the move out yet. I sit down And I come back and again, I do it at 2 colored pens. And then I'm like, well, that's not good. And I always play it down, even if it's worst case scenario. Oh, that's not so bad. And then they see me with my phone and I'm clicking a photo as we go. So as I go through the list, click, 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 they're all in sequence. Then they go through the list. Sure enough, they pull out their cameras and they all think that they should be, oh, yeah, totally. Get some photos. Great. Maybe my this one doesn't turn out, or maybe yours is better. Well, what do you do that for? So there, we don't have to worry about coming back to do this twice. And then, and then I get them to hand it over to them. And while they're looking everything over, I go turn on every tap in the house, make sure the drains are running. Then I flush the toilets, making sure the toilets aren't backing up. Then I check the lights, because you miss all these. What I'm looking for is the minor stuff. But I mean, a plugged toilet with potatoes, you might not find out till your next tenant. So I just kind of go through every contraption, open cupboard and doors, making sure things are working, open the dishwasher, open the fridge, and just make sure everything's physically working. And I probably find 3 to 4 more items that are either broken or not working that they forgot to mention. And then I come back and the darn thing is signed. Everybody's happy. Great. Have a nice day.
Right.
Interesting. Okay,
So by having that,
here. Oh,
yeah.
go ahead, Chris.
Okay, I'm going to do that recap because I like what Rob has said. So what Rob has done, folks, if you're listening well here, Rob has established a way he's doing. He's got a system. And when he goes to court, he's going to say, just like he just said, this is my practice. This is what I do. I do this every single time. And if you don't vary from it and you're going to give this evidence in court, this is what we're telling you, is consistency is credibility, is what we're saying. So go through, get a system in place, and do the same thing every time. If you have one house, well, it's easy. If you have several houses, well, get a general system that you do when you go to each place. I have my system. Rob has his. I gathered a couple things from Rob that I'll put into place, and I'm sure the rest of you have. Bill, tell us about you, how you check people in and what you do.
I'm pretty relaxed with it. I actually go through the house before, on move in, I go in before the tenants are there, kind of make notes on my sheets about what I see. And then I walk through and point out all of the issues or potential issues and get them to point out any issues they see as well. I really like Rob's pen idea. I haven't done that. I think that's really effective.
Well, I like what Chris does too. He walks away. So I wanted to draw attention. You walk away and you, like you said, you de-stress the situation. You're not hovering, and the tenant's like, okay, I can just go and find the wrong things and not have like this big brother feeling of someone floating over your shoulder. I do something a little bit different, but I also really like Rob's idea. That's that double perspective, how it's well documented, color coded. That's just, see, Rob's all about the paperwork, and I always get gems in this show when I get this guy on the air, and we're sharing tools of the trade. So I mean, pro tips of the way, Rob. Those are solid. I do the typical walkthrough. I fill it out, or I get them to fill it out. I now start videotaping it, so I get them in the house agreeing with me what is what. I set the standard up front saying, I consider scratches to be of a certain size, this or that. And then what I do at the very end of the inspection, I say, by the way, listen, this isn't perfect. You guys have the next week to email any additional damages or concerns you may find, and I'll amend the move-in inspection through the email, and you guys have that breadth. So then they know they have an entire week to go through at their leisure and find something that they may have not seen in the moment. So they're not stressed out in that very moment to do it perfectly. They know they've got leeway. And I follow up an email and I write that, because then if they're ever to push back, I'll be like, well, if I ever went to the RTDRS, I could like, well, here's an email trail. Here's my process as Chris has laid out. That's how I explain I do things. And they had a whole week to add any additional complaints. So this is the move inspection. It's accurate. And then if they, I've usually gotten 1 or 2 emails where they have a few pictures, and that's appended at the bottom, and it's just a really good base point to start from. But interesting segue from conflict resolution to these little small tactics and doing paperwork to take the stress out of the interaction.
But it is part of conflict resolution, MacKenzie, because if your move-in goes bad, you've got high maintenance tenants for the rest of the time. They're in full defensive. I mean, I take it, if I do see something that's really simple, I'll even pick up my phone as they're looking over, and I'll make the phone call to the ops, say, hey, I need you to write this down. And I want them to hear me saying it. We got this baseboard with a couple nails sticking out, and one of the smoke detectors is missing a battery. And I notice there's a bit of a stink in the fridge. I need this written down so this can be dealt with as soon as I get back to the office. And you should, if you're paying attention, you watch the look on the tenant's face. They're like, oh, like, shit, he is all over this.
This guy cares. He's so nice.
You know, like, and right there, you can actually, don't even have to put notice out. You turn to them and say, hey, he just called me back as we were doing. He says he can have so-and-so out there tomorrow for these. What time works for you guys? Can I give him your number? And I give it right there. Staff passes it along, or the contractor returns the text. And they're like, shit, we're not going to be moved in here, and these things are going to be rectified. And it takes the conflict resolution down to a minimum. If they find something, they're not looking, first of all, but if they do find something, they're like, hey, I noticed, a couple hours you left, we saw this. Can you get your guy to fix it up? Sure, no problem. Because you're never going to see everything.
No, that's for sure. And go ahead, Chris.
Bill, what kind of conflicts have you had to deal with in your world? Because you're a pretty laid back guy. Like, you broke up a big fight between you.
This is only an hour show, though. This is only an hour show, right?
So tell me about you.
Well, with the rooming houses I saw, and this is where it gets dangerous. Every time you say you've seen everything, you're just opening up the door for something new. So I've seen a lot of stuff. Fights between tenants, guys with knives finding bullets after people have moved out, finding other stuff you don't even want to know about after they've moved out, drug paraphernalia, needles, everything along the line. The one thing I always found with the conflicts is if you come from a position of authority and set the tone immediately, you gain more control. And you see it with the police, you see it with all the authority figures. When you are authoritative, even if you're wrong, if you're authoritative, you're in a much better stance than if you're, I don't know, maybe. You got to stand your ground. You got to be authoritative. And if you know the rules, it makes a huge difference. And I know you're always talking about understand what the rules are. If you're speaking from a place of authority, you know the rules, and you're not, maybe not being confrontational, but you're not backing down, they will tend to respect that. And as the professional landlord, that carries a lot of weight. And like I said, I've dealt with a lot of, let's call them nefarious individuals over the years. And when you come from that power position, they tend to back down a little bit more. It doesn't matter how big or mean they tend to be. When you're talking from authority, you know the rules, and you're explaining to them exactly how it works. They listen a lot more than if you're weak. You can't show weakness.
Yeah. Well, and you can't agree with them either. I think, Chris, you gave this tip last time we did this kind of subject, was you sit there, you don't agree with them, or maybe as a podcast is listening to, whichever. I'm going to give credit to Chris. So if you're in a situation, or again, you're dealing with conflict where they're trying to push on a position that it's unfair, you don't agree with, don't sit there and nod your head. If you nod your head and go, okay, and they're making up some BS story about the damages, and you're doing this and listening, it's a natural reaction to do that. Just sit there, don't move your body, don't nod, and don't say anything. You're listening to them, but they're not getting the acknowledgement that they're right, and they're not going to continue going on and on. And I heard that was like a kind of a subtle body language tip that I had picked. Actually, now I think about it was a podcast about negotiations I was listening to. But do you ever do anything like that, Chris? Like when you're in your law enforcement, you come into a scene, like, I know you guys, there's a whole power obviously persona with the uniform, that's part of it, but I'm sure you guys have a certain approach and you walk on scene and depending what's going on, right?
Well, just listening. You don't have to agree. Your body language, you could just acknowledge that they're speaking to you, and that may be through a nod or whatever. But do you understand what I'm saying? I understand what you're saying. You can even say, I don't completely agree with you. However, I understand what you're saying. You've given them something. Here's the thing, though, folks. At the end of the day, you don't have to be judge and jury. You just make your point with limitations, because you don't want to create the conflict. You note things. You say, well, I'm not signing that. They don't have to sign it. They don't have to sign the in or the out or whatever. If they're not signing the in, you may not want to let them in. And if they don't sign the out, who cares? At the end of the day, time is on your side. The security deposit is on your side. The pet deposit is on your side. You have a little bit of a hammer, and you have a bigger hammer when you win in court. So just let them have their rant, let them have their thing, and just remember, time is on your side. And then when you serve them the papers to the RTDS, the third party will look this over and say, yes, you are correct, Mr. Noble, Mr. Bonin, Mr. Biko. And Mr. Tenant, you do owe this money because this is the way it went. And they can tell the adjudicator or judge that they're full of BS and use the full word. And guess what? You just got more credibility because now he just saw, or she just saw, exactly what you've had to deal with for the last how many months. Mm. And Rob will tell you that when you go to court, probably 8 out of 10 times the tenant creates and validates your case because they don't know how to present their case, because their lie isn't well thought out. And Rob will tell you when they start talking, he just sits back and goes, I don't think I need to say anything here because they just sewered themselves.
Yeah, when I do catch somebody in a ridiculous lie, or I know they're trying to push a story that's completely just BS on the judge, I just wait for them to slip up. I keep list, like you said, just be patient. They're going to slip up, and I write these things down and I say, okay, actually I do have some questions. Remember when I brought that up and I gave my perception of it? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, where could you have gotten this perception from? And I get them to explain the lie. And now they've got to say the same lie twice in less than 2 minutes. And it does not come out well. I said, I'll just pick apart something. Like, please explain to me. You said the door was like that when we moved in. Like it was busted up, but there's pictures on your social media, you standing in front of the door after you moved in. It looked great. And then they're like, oh, well, no, like it happened after I moved in. It wasn't. And I was like, oh, okay. So, okay, we've established that. Like tenants, they want to tell the truth. All you have to do is lead them to it. Same with landlords. It's litigating. It comes with experience and reading people. And a lot of people don't see it. And there's I think Kenzie put the head on the nail one night on a show, and he says, it's a business. Don't take this personal. And and the tenants always take it personal, especially when their lie is falling apart and I'm rubbing their noses in. Actually, they're rubbing their own nose in it for me. I don't even need to. And they're being caught and they're being told to be quiet because they're getting frustrated, and they'll cut me off when I'm saying something. And I mean, I literally mute when I'm in my boardroom and I have clients and they're attending. Yeah. When somebody else is speaking, I mute. And there's a reason for it, because the emotions come out from the owners or the tenants, and they're losing their minds. And I'm like, shh, we're muted. But when it comes back on, shh, quiet. And right there, all of a sudden, the opposing party starts losing their mind, interrupting me. It just makes my credibility stronger as long as you treat it as a business and don't take it personal. Even when it goes to court, it's not personal.
They'll try to make it personal, but you don't even own that. There's no value in going down that path at all, for sure.
No, even when it is personal, treat it like a business. To bitch about it later, phone your buddy Chris and say, oh my God, what happened today?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I take appointments between 10 and 2 on Thursdays, so you can book in those days and we can talk.
I thought it was when is cooking and when is plumbing work, Chris?
Yeah, we'll talk about my trigger. And yeah, I haven't had to come down and do any Max plumbing lately, so. Bill, what have you had have you had many RTDS hearings, Bill, or been to provincial court?
Quite a few. But like Rob says, if you're prepared, then you just wait for the tenants to lie and make stuff up or not show up.
Yeah.
And my typical applications were between 80 and 120 pages, and I've got double cross-referencing on everything and follow up and document. And when they sit there saying, well, this never happened, it's like, well, but you sent me the email that it happened here. If you look through the notes, you can see that in my evidence on page whatever, the information's right there. And it really comes down to documenting. And when I talk to landlords who are trying to evict a tenant, I say, have all the information. If you don't have all the information, it's probably not even worth trying to evict them right now, because you got a 50-50 shot, depending on who you have for a hearing officer and how little evidence you have. If the tenant comes across as being more reliable than you are, you could lose. So give it another month, because you're just going to screw up worse and build a better trail.
Excellent.
So this is a good comment, Chris.
This is from Trish Fraser, and it leads right into what we're talking about. And because Trish gets personally involved in this, she has identified where she needs that little bit of assistance. And if you don't know, Trish is one of our administrators of our page. And Trish has come to me when she had a difficulty with a neighbor, and I set her up with a lawyer. And anyway, I'm going to go over to back to you, Bill. Here it says, what are your thoughts on hiring someone as a less experienced landlord, and you hire someone who is comfortable in court and can present things without the personal connection? What are your thoughts?
Definitely the way to go. I talk to a lot of landlords and say, are you prepared to go through it? Like, will you be able to confront this tenant at this hearing and basically walk through all of this stuff? And it's like, well, I don't even want to serve him paperwork. Hire somebody. Get somebody else to do it, because obviously you're not going to be able to do it, or you won't do it properly. And you're at a point where it's worth spending the money to get it done right and get your property back and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And this comment here from Nina validates what Bill just said and what Rob said. It says it's hard to stay muted when they start saying stuff at a hearing that's a huge lie.
And that's back what to Rob said. It's litigation. You have to let them lie. You have to let them finish, and then it's your turn to counter it and show where they made all these lies and factual errors. So.
Well, and it comes from reading the hearing officers and the judges too, because if you know what their tolerance level is, like they know that the person's lying. I mean, here's a very common one that seems to be coming out towards men more in the last 5 years, is a husband and wife will be sitting there, the landlords. It's a female tenant, even a male tenant, maybe even a couple, and the female suddenly says she feels that she's losing, and it's happening about 1 out of maybe every 20, maybe 1 out of 10 in the younger generation. Well, she comes out, well, your husband was so inappropriate to me sexually. And you should see the look on the husband and wife's face. I'm like, I can't even mute that phone fast enough, because shit goes sideways in my boardroom, and I'm like, hey, she's lying. And then the wife be like, oh, because it's just the look she gives him, like, pardon me, and it's such a shock. And you need to know how to react, because if they say that, and I know when to interrupt them, because I know all 17, now 18 arbitrators and 5 judges in Red Deer that do this, and I think there's a total of 13 that do it in Edmonton and Calgary, and you kind of get what their tolerance level is. And if you read them right from their voices or their expressions, you'd be like, all right, that's enough. And I literally interrupt saying, there's no evidence of this whatsoever. This is slanderous and libel. If this person feels, and I apologize for what I'm doing, I'll be like, and I apologize for interrupting, but what this person is talking about is criminal. This is civil court. If they think they have a criminal matter, they need to phone law enforcement, and we need to remove it from this situation, because I don't know anything about it. And looking at my clients, neither do they. And 99.9% I have found the arbitrator or judge will back you. They will jump right in there and say, Mr. Bonin is 100% correct. I don't want to hear another word of that. And if there is something to that, you call law enforcement like Mr. Bonin suggested.
Right. Now, this next question is from the same lady, Nina, or N-I-A. I'm going to go Nina. I don't know.
It says N-I. We'll call her Nia.
Nia. Okay. Nia says, but she's dealing with a pathological lie. Great. Do you know what? Even though the pathological lying, they still have to have paper or facts to back them, because they'll go on and on and on in their story. But good for them. This is why you hire Rob and you hire Dawn, is because they have the whole case prepared and laying out in front of them, because you've hired them and you spent the money. So if you have a pathological liar, you need to spend a little extra money, and you need to hire somebody who isn't personally attached to this and is disconnected enough that they can just brush off these comments and show that it's irrelevant to the hearing, or show why it doesn't matter, or push a note. It needs to go to that part needs to go to the police. They can make their complaint. And like Rob says, 99.9% of the time they don't even do it, because they're throwing smoke out there, trying to create a cloud.
Yeah, it's a Hail Mary. They're hoping for the mud to stick.
Right. And these guys cut through the fog and they go, okay, let's get back to what we're here for. This is the damage. Here's the pictures. We'd like a judgment. And they go, yep, judgment. And the pathological liar just lost. So listen to what we're saying, folks, because we have experienced people here.
And
right.
we're getting experienced people in court now, whether it be a landlord or a tenant, high percentage tenants. that are becoming experienced within these hearings, within these courtrooms. They are getting experience. Some of them as high as 5 or 6 in the last 3 years. We just had one recently, Chris, wasn't it 4 in 1 year? 4 this year?
Yep.
4 times.
And then,
Me and Chris, we were only aware of 3 of them, and the mother-in-law gave me up the 4th one. Saying,
well,
who would rent to my stepdaughter?
Yeah, when these people come into court, first thing they ask for is adjournment. And do you know why they do that? I'll tell you why. Because they are experienced in the court, and they say, well, we'll get adjournment. And if you can't oppose that properly, you are going to find yourself in a 2-week adjournment while they get some bogus witness. When the next time it comes around the court, they don't show up. Yeah, we can't get a hold of witness. Can we get another week's adjournment? They don't need it. And Rob and I dealt with a situation where they were asking for an adjournment to bring a witness in. Their witness they were calling, we evicted 3 weeks earlier, and we had to tell the adjudicator saying, we did that eviction on that person 3 weeks earlier from the other building owned by this same landlord. So we don't see what evidence they're going to bring in that relates to this situation. The arbitrator said, I absolutely agree. Your adjournment is denied. So if you know how to deal with court, like Rob and Don do, then you won't have to deal with an adjournment and keep them there for another 2 weeks.
Well, and plus, I see a lot of landlords, if we went 20 years ago, you never even heard of these $10,000 plus claims. And there's just so much damages these days. And I hear landlords saying, yeah, I'll do it myself. And I've explained to them, some of them saying, well, there's a difference between getting that 10 grand and getting 2 grand. Well, why would they do that? It's all on your presentation. If you don't present it in the right way, you don't depreciate it yourself, you don't cover your bases with photographs, you don't have the right witnesses in place to make it credible. These judges are looking for a way to resolve this. Chris was in law enforcement. He knows judges and hearing officers are about one thing. They want a resolution, not a judgment. You want something in between where there's a little bit of justice served and there's still some wiggle room, so it's a good judgment in your favor. And I've seen people lose cases that they could have easily gotten $10,000 to $15,000 judgment. They ended up with $1,500 or lost altogether. And they had it all there. They just didn't know how to present it, and they didn't know how to present it in the way that that particular hearing officer wants it.
Okay, cool. Well, let's segue here. I want to challenge you guys. So let's remove ourselves from the conflict, and let's say we have a conflict with 2 neighboring tenants. Let's say we've got a suited house, a basement suite and a main floor suite. Let's talk about some situations that you guys have seen personally, and what are some tips and tricks that we could do to deal with this kind of conflict. So, Bill, I guess you had this business called rooming houses. You might have 5 unrelated neighbors in one house sharing a common bathroom and a kitchen. How did that go for you?
Oh, it was easy. It just all went perfect every time.
Home runs, just pop, pop.
Yeah.
I just saw his vein pop in his forehead.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it'd be crazy what you see. You'd end up with somebody who'd be a clean freak and somebody who was the extreme opposite, and there would be conflicts all the time. And you just had to be on top of it. If it was brought to your attention, you had to get there and talk to both parties and say something's got to change or somebody's got to go. And, sometimes it was easy where somebody would go, you know what, I'm gone by the end of the week. Perfect. Talk to the other person. Listen, they're leaving at the end of the week. You have to potentially suffer a few more days, but we've got an end to this. So if there's any other issues, if it gets worse, let me know. But we have a resolution, so let's just get through this and everything will be better moving forward.
Okay, so your strategy, I'm going to recap for you here. Bill, you come in, talk to both parties at the same time, talk to them individually in the same room, and address the problem, and then give them the ultimatum. Like, how do you guys want to resolve this? Like, I want some nuances here, Bill. Like, give me some details here.
But as Rob says, it's always case by case and seeing what the body language is. You can usually tell who's
full of shit,
who's the problem. And that kind of gives you a little bit of leg to stand on. On those some occasions you can't. You don't know maybe they're both lying. Maybe they're both full of whatever. And you just kind of wing it and lay the law down. It's like, somebody's leaving. If this doesn't get corrected, I don't care if it's both of you, but somebody's leaving. So either you resolve it you get the hell out, or you go.
Okay.
And you just got to stand your ground. You don't. If you let them walk all over you, they will walk all over you. And then when you give them that inch, they will suddenly be looking for a mile. And if you don't stand up, it just gets worse and worse. So so many of the landlords let tenants get away with stuff at the beginning, and that just builds up and it causes more problems later.
Yeah.
If you play like it's your property, it's your business, it's your ball game, and it's your rules within the rules.
Yes.
You've set that playing field that you can stick with. If you start namby-pambying and kowtowing to all their demands, it's like now you've set the stage where that's what you're going to do all the time. So life becomes hell.
I think we're missing something too. Whenever you're doing any kind of conflict resolution, whether it be a single tenant, double tenant, multiple tenants in apartment buildings, you're a parent, you're a therapist, you're a referee, you're a couples counselor. And at the end of the story and all the bullshit comes through, you're the judge, jury, and the executioner. So if you're not prepared to be all of this, this is not what you want to do. If you can't do everything I just said, then you don't want to be in this business. It's going to tear your heart apart. It's going to give you gray hairs. It's going to make you bald. It's going to make you sterile by the time you're done with it. You have to have thick skin to do what you're doing here.
Fair enough. Yeah, absolutely. Chris?
I had a tenant here this week. It was a duplex. The other side moved in. Her mother came over from another community to help out, but she's recently just had a child, and she was going, her dog she couldn't keep. I allow dogs, but she said, I can't keep my dog because I don't think it's going to get along having the baby and stuff. And I said, okay, fair enough. So when her mother was here, the mother's going to take it back to the farm and she's going to have the dog there. And the other neighbor has her dog, very kind dog, very nice. And I don't mind it. It's a sweet dog. And I don't know whether this is an entitlement thing or what it was, but she's a 4-year renter of mine. She says, Chris, how long is this dog going to be on the other side? I go, sorry, what? Well, are you allowing a dog over there? I said, yeah, they're going to have the dog there for a couple of days and they're going to leave. Bye. What's the problem? Well, it's on their deck. And when I take my dog out back to walk, it barks and distracts my dog. I'm going, oh my God, are you even listening to how you're talking to me? So you take your dog out to the back, and from the back, it goes into an open field where they walk around. But it's distracting, and my dog is uncomfortable with their dog up on the deck barking at her.
So they both have dogs, and one's complaining about having the other tenant having a dog?
Yeah, basically, her dog's on the deck of the other person, and it's barking at this tenant I've had 4 years when she walks her dog out to the back. And I really wanted to say, why don't you just walk your dog around the corner out into that field instead of through the backyard if it's that much of a stressor to you? But she's kind of one of those higher maintenance tenants.
What did Dr. Chris say? What did Dr. Chris say?
Karen?
All I said.
You got a Karen? It sounds like a Karen.
Okay, Karen, I said. I said, I'll look after it. They're leaving Monday. Actually, I said, they are leaving Monday. You're just going to have to deal with it. And I suggested that perhaps you take it over. Well, I'm not comfortable with this, but okay, fine. And I'm going like, okay, she pays my rent. I never hear any problems, never hear any issues. And in 4 years, I'm feeling uncomfortable with their dog on the deck barking at my dog and upsetting her.
Oh, she was the 4-year tenant. Oh, I thought she was the new one that just moved in.
No, it's the 4-year tenant that's complaining about, and I'm going like, okay, my actual thoughts were, are you blanking serious? But I didn't say the words.
Yeah. Well, you think one thing, and that's why you think it. You just leave it up there. You use this filter that you shouldn't be using, and pick the right words, or don't say anything at all. That's the best part. Just stay quiet.
Yeah.
Should we tackle Nita's question there? Oh, so yeah, okay. So you just said, hey, it's going to be resolved in the next period of time. That's a great solution. Just politely deal with it.
Yeah. I just let it. You know what? I just didn't do anything because I just wanted to show that it's not even worth my time. I just okay, thanks for telling me, and I did nothing, and I went back and I finished my beer. But anyway.
Okay.
Let's go at Nina's question here. This is a good.
Yeah,
And
Let's tackle this one. Okay, so my tenant that owed me rent decided to disappear on me, and I caught them by accident when I was driving by the house. At the hearing, they said they were leaving because I was harassing them and made it so uncomfortable for them to stay. And they didn't tell me about leaving because they were afraid of my reaction. How would you prove that is a lie? Rob, I know this is up your court. I can see the Uncle Bill's gears turning too, so you guys got 1 and 2 here. Go ahead, Rob.
Why don't you give that to me one more time? I only caught part of it. You cut out at the start.
Oh, okay. So I'll paraphrase quickly. So Nina's dealing with an eviction. She's gone to the hearing, where she drove by her property and discovered her tent. Or her tenant decided to disappear. She went by the property and accidentally caught the tenant there in the act. And then the tenant said during the hearing that they were being harassed by her, and that's why they were too afraid to tell her that they were leaving. And they're inflaming the story. And she's asking, how would I prove that is a lie?
Well, it's not really a lie. It's their perception of what happened. So instead of getting really uptight in a hearing, if it was me and I was defending, I would mute the phone. I would talk to my client, unmute the phone, because I would just ask for a moment to ask him because I'm unaware of the situation. And I would say, well, my client just gave me a brief interlude on what actually happened and their perception. And you always say their perception of this. They live nearby. They drive by the property 3-4 times a week. It just happened to be one of the times that they drove past it. And and of course, I mean, and I always try and I try comparables. If you own a Safeway and you're driving by, you're probably going to be looking at the Safeway. It's your business. So what they consider harassment is just normal day-to-day business for everybody else. It wasn't like the owners got out of the car and ran up on the door and started taking photos, and they drove by. And if the tenant is actually taking the time to notice every car driving by and they're trying to figure out who's what, I'm asking a bigger question in court. Why are they watching every vehicle drive by the house? So all I'm doing is completely misdirecting and turning it right back on them. What are you doing watching every vehicle that walks past your house? And do you have any photographs of it? Do you have any video of it? And they don't. How do you know it was their car? How do you know it was them in that car? There could be 5 of those cars. I mean, at the end of the day, I would admit to being there, and then I would tear down their story as just paranoia.
Yeah, I just got to throw this comment up. This is Melanie. I use my filter every day at work. Me too. Me too. I have a creative mind, and it goes a little bit faster than my mouth, and that's a good thing. So, perfect. Okay, yeah. So you put it back on them, Rob, and you put reason, and you classify it as perception. It's not fact. It's perception, which is a different take on the explanation, which I really like how you did that. So, good pivot there. Well, where are we at now? Do you guys? We're 5 minutes to the end of the hour here. Kind of wrapping up. Is there any tips on the top of your mind since we talked through tonight that you haven't got a chance to talk about? Chris, then Bill, because I know Rob, you've already got your chances in.
I'll defer to Bill here. I'm just kind of looking at some questions and some things that I might bring up here.
Just document everything. When we're talking about these confrontations, after you're done, put it down in a letter and get it off to the tenants afterwards so you have a paper trail, and let them know, hey, here's what we discussed. You had an issue with the dog. You had an issue with the other dog. You had an issue with tenant A not cleaning up the place and blah, blah, blah. Here's a resolution. It's going to be resolved this way. Just want to make sure we both understood this, blah. If it comes up later, you've got documentation that, you addressed it, you were there, you tried to deal with it, and it didn't go the way it was supposed to.
Okay. And so what if I have this conversation over a phone or I talk to them
Same
personally?
thing, write it out. Get it off to them either as a written notice, send it as an email, send it as a text. Do all 3. And then just follow up and say, hey, just wanted to make sure you got it. Did you see the text or did you see the email or did you see the notice I left on your door? Yeah, I did see it. Perfect. Now you got a paper trail showing that they've actually received it and read it. So it just
confirmation.
Exactly.
Cool. Love it. Sweet. This was a good show. This was fun. I got a thumbs up. If you guys enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up on the show. We appreciate the kudos. It always makes us smile. Pretty cool. I don't really got much else. I guess we can do some. I do have some wrap up notes, but okay.
Let's just throw this one question up. Real quick
yes.
here,
Okay. Yeah, I need to just throw this one in here. So,
how much you ask for a dog?
Totally. So let's all take take on. I do between 25 for my longer term tenants, and then I've done as high as 35 and 45.
Are you talking a month, MacKenzie?
Yeah, I go ongoing monthly rate, and I'm even looking at sometimes here taking an upfront deposit, non-refundable deposit.
Non-refundable, yeah. A lot of times
Um,
too, I have to meet the animal. I have to see the animal. If
they
they're
come to
talking
the
about
viewings.
some kind of large animal or a bull or a Rottweiler or any type of animal that has shown aggression, bigger dogs do, I just want to meet the animal. I want to see the temperament. And I
Mm-hmm.
ask them, bring the dog with you when you come to look at the place. And I've had dogs fly up, barking and growling at me as they come out of the car, and they're flying at the house. And I'm like, yeah, bye.
No, yeah. If I'm not comfortable walking in my own rental, it's not happening.
Yeah,
And you know what? I've never met a dog that lied to me, that
no,
had a secret. Right? They are who they are. So you'll know pretty quickly. That's why it's so important.
yeah.
To
I
see
want to
them
meet
face to
everybody.
face.
I want to meet everybody that's coming to that place. I've had people walk in with children, and they're climbing the walls in my office, and the parents are fine with that. Well, thank you for bringing that to my attention before I let you rent my home.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. Sweet.
Kathy, I have a question for Kathy. If you can quickly respond to it. You said you take a one-time fee of $350. Do you also take a monthly fee? So if you could respond to that, I have an answer for you.
Nope.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
And so, did you say no, Rob?
I said, Bill, he looked like he was
Oh.
falling asleep back there.
Well,
I'm just relaxing. You guys are so entertaining. It's just, kicking back.
Okay, over to Bill. What do you got?
Yeah, $25 to $50 depends on the animal. It's funny.
Per animal.
Yeah, per animal. Even if it's a small animal, I had one issue with a tenant who had just a tiny little dog, but apparently it nipped I think it was a UPS driver or some driver, and he was apparently scarred for life. He had to take off 3 or 4 days of work, and workers' compensation board actually came after me initially because I was on title for the property.
Interesting.
The tenant did resolve it and pay for it out of their pocket. I think they had to pay like a day's worth of lost wages, which it was
Like $300
ludicrous. But yeah, so you got to protect yourself for that. You got to make sure you have insurance in place for yourself for that if something worse happens, and you've just got to be able to deal with things like that. So that extra 25 to 50 or even 350 a year kind of helps out. So
And it's a privilege too. And I know Trish is really good at clarifying this up front. She's a big dog lover. She's got 2 dogs herself. Also, again, one of our community hosts and administrators. She says it's a privilege. It's my house. It's ultimately my decision. And she does a really good job of clarifying expectations up front around having a pet. But yeah, you got to meet the pet in person. And I've also had, especially my suite properties, dog upstairs, dog downstairs, new tenant come in, is going upstairs. I've asked my tenant to be around and to bring the dog out, and the dog's met face to face as well, because you don't want them scrapping every time they're sharing the backyard if it's a shared setup. So, and that's worked well for me as well.
All right, I want to tackle Kathy's answer here. I got to bring a different spin on this really quick. Let's say you take a $350 per pet one-time fee, but that's fine. That's your choice. I'm going to put a different spin on it. Let's say you take a 20. I'm going to just use a simple number. Obviously, it'll be better the higher you go. But let's say you're going to take a $200 one-time pet fee, or let's say you take a $20 per month pet fee, and your rent is $1,500. So that's $1,520 a month that you can collect now as general revenues. And then you go with, and also you can collect $1,520 in a damage deposit, because that's your fee. You're charging $1,520, and that includes the dog, and $1,520 is your damage deposit. Now, let's say at the end of the year, you've collected an extra $20. You were going to collect an extra $20 or $200 as a one-time fee, but now at the end of the year, you have $240 because you've gone 12 months and you've got general revenue is increased by $240. Now you have them as a 3-year tenant. You have now $720 into your general revenues. 2 things happen here. One is you now have $720. The pet's created damage, plus you got a damage deposit of $1,520. That gives you $2,300 in your pocket, basically, to go towards damages. And one is general revenue and one's damage deposit. On the other side of it is, if you're going to do any refinancing or anything like that, you're now showing a higher income in your properties because you got 15, 20. I know you're saying, well, it's only $20. I'm talking the overall picture. Maybe you're doing $25 or $35 a month per pet. Your general revenues are higher, and you're also going to use that money towards damages because you can claim it back later. And go figure, if you go to court, you're going to get paid. If you win, you can get that paid back. So my idea on that is to collect a monthly fee, and hopefully you have a long-term tenant, and you get a higher damage deposit.
And Kathy's spinning back at you. She says, if that pet does more than $350 in damage in the first year, I wouldn't renew the lease.
Exactly. You've got the control, and that's another thing we preach. Do leases. Get away from your month-to-month.
Yeah, terms for sure.
All
Well,
right.
let's wrap her up. I got a sneak preview for next week, Chris. Did I tell you what's going on?
No, throw that out there and a quick round table for these other two fellas, and let's wrap her up.
Let's wrap her up. So we have I got a gentleman hopping on. He's got a really cool concept. His name is Scott Andrews. They're a pair of brothers, actually originally from Scotland. He now reside here in beautiful Alberta. They have this program about rewarding tenants for doing proactive maintenance and providing really comprehensive, timely inspections in a digital PDF format. So they've been at it for quite some while. They've done some improvements on the process, and I think they're starting to get something right. And they're going to come on our show next week and talk about what they're doing. So a little bit of tech coming out to this industry. So I think it'll be a good little show. And I've got something coming in the new year for folks. If you guys are interested in masterminding and landlording, stay tuned. I do have an announcement for that if they're looking to improve your business and take it to the next level.
And the other show we're trying to work on, Mac, is getting a whole bunch of landlords from different provinces. So we're still in the works, trying to reach out to people. Again, I'll put this out there. If you know a landlord in another province who's well-versed in what they do, throw the name at me, PM me directly. I'll reach out to them, and we'll bring them on the show. And my aim is to let us see just how good we have it in Alberta, because people are look to us for guidance out here.
Good points. Maybe a Christmas special. I don't know. We'll see where we're at.
Bill, final thoughts, please.
Final thoughts.
Thanks for having me on again, guys. I enjoy hanging out and sharing stories and lies. And stories, just stories.
The battle scars of being a landlord.
Well, I'm going to give credit where credit's due. The perception part I brought up earlier, that's Ranchell's edition. She's changed me in court. Perception, getting across people's perception is everything. But I do want to share something. There's some big announcements for Red Deer recoveries next year. That'll be coming up soon. But I found out today as me and Christopher were talking with the Residential Tenants Dispute Resolution Service, that's one part of Service Alberta that's changing in the next 18 months. They're going to be adding a Condo Act resolution service. So if you're a condo owner and you're having difficulties with the management company, the condo board, or you can't resolve a situation between two condo owners or any of the above, this Condo Act resolution service is coming. It's going to be a big thing. It's going to help people when they buy condos and get so frustrated they don't know what to do. The real estate board has entered the fray as of December 1st, and they are holding individuals within the real estate community accountable for their actions as of December 1st this year. So it's no longer the cowboy routine that management companies have been operating under. There's going to be some serious repercussions for a licensed individual that's not following the rules.
That's good.
Nice.
That's always good. More accountability to the business is always good. So while we got you center stage here, Rob, what is our wait time if I was to file through RTDRS right now?
Well, as me and Chris were discussing the other day, the average matters if it's just a regular substantial breach, is anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks right now. Over the holidays, it's only going to get worse. As Chris knows, they hired a couple people. They hired 3 people this week, Chris. So I think they're anticipating, and their hours they're running right up until the 23rd or 24th. I heard now of December, and then they're going to be going back at it at the 3rd. So they're actually going a couple days later than most government offices, and they're coming back a couple days earlier because they know the pressure last year was 6 to 8 weeks. So I think they're going to be really hitting it. The courts,
that's awesome.
Courts are pretty well the same thing. And again, that's why accountability, not just for landlords and tenants, but these hearing officers, they need to be held accountable if they're not following their code of conduct, because a hearing that could have taken 5 to 15 minutes is taking 2 hours because of a difficult arbitrator. And we'll bring everybody up to speed as that situation resolves itself in the future.
Great. That's awesome. Thanks. Good information. Hearing them picking up more staff. You heard it here first. You heard it here first in Alberta landlord community with the professionals that we've got that are in the business doing it day in and day out. Great skills and leadership. Thank you, Rob, for that. So let's
see you all
wrap her
next
up.
week.
See you all next week.
See you all next week. Next week will be
Hey.
our final show for the year, and we'll be taking a break till the new year. So
Take care, guys.
see you then.
All right.
Bye,
Have a
everybody.
good night, everybody.
Thanks, Kat.